All right, UFC 240 goes down Saturday in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, in the main event. It's a fight that we've been waiting to see for a long time. I think we're finally going to get to see it. We won't speak too soon, but Max Holloway versus Frankie Edgar. Dan, Tom, listen, you've probably had to start looking at this fight quite a bit over the time they've been trying to put it together. How much has changed over time, and what were the keys as you kind of started really trying to break down this fight of two legends?
You know, a lot's happened. Now, this is going to be the third time's the charm, right? And in between said time, I think the most notable thing that happened is Frankie Edgar got stopped for the first time back at UFC 222 when they were supposed to fight. Of course, he fought Brian Ortega that night. That played out. Ortega got his shot. Frankie Edgar got back on track against Cub Swanson. But aside from that, I feel like the matchup kind of lays out very similar. We've got the volume of Frankie Edgar, the wrestling, and how is that wrestling, that veteranship, that mix of attack and volume going to stack up with another guy who obviously puts on the volume as well?
Yeah, of course, we also saw Max Holloway lose, but it was up at 155 pounds. But he's definitely been through some battles as well. So I think this is an interesting matchup, man. I find question marks around both these fighters, which is crazy to say because Frankie Edgar is an all-time great, and Max Holloway may be the best featherweight of all time. But still, I feel like there's a couple little question marks. So once you got down to the nuts and bolts, which way did you lean on this one, Dan?
Yeah, I like that you brought up that the champion did take a loss in said time. But the thing is about that loss, John, it was a respectable loss. It was a great fight, and I don't think it's the type of loss like a devastating KO that's going to hurt Max's confidence. If that were to happen, then I think the stage would be set for Frankie to slide in here. Unfortunately, what's going against it for Frankie, in my opinion, is when I look back from recent Frankie Edgar, the improved striking, because he's an old dog, but it doesn't stop him from learning new tricks. He keeps getting better. It's the straight shots. It's whether it's front kicks, straight shots off the counter, or coming forward. That seems to be the common culprit. Frankie does well against hooking fighters, and against Max Holloway, a guy who can throw straight from any stance, coming forward or backward. I think it's going to make for a tough night, especially with Max's takedown defense, which is quiet, but it's there. The grip, the hip awareness, it's all there, and I think it's going to make for a tough night for Frankie Edgar.
You can definitely see that. I think we're in for a battle. These two guys know how to scrap, that's for sure. What do you see? Do you see this thing getting done within the distance? How does this go?
You know, at first I was thinking, Holloway inside the distance, but even Holloway in an interview himself was saying, I've got my bags packed for Frankie Edgar. He knows he's a very durable fighter, and Max even, a credit to himself, said, I'm not a one-punch knockout guy. So I think that it's going to be a decision with the caveat of possibly a late stoppage with Max pulling away in the later rounds. Either way, I'm going to go with Max Holloway here.
I can see it happen. Well, listen, I think it's going to be a fun fight. If you want to check all the homework, see all the notes, we got a big written version of this as well that you can take a look at MMA Junkie. And meanwhile, keep tuned to the website all week long. We'll have full coverage from Edmonton.